The night is gentle, and the Nile breathes in slow rhythm. You are not yet a queen, not yet a whisper on the lips of poets or a riddle on the tongues of generals. You are simply a child swaddled in linen, your cradle rocked by the sighing of the Egyptian breeze. Outside, palm leaves sway like slow metronomes. The moon rests lazily above Alexandria, and the stars hum soft lullabies in languages long forgotten. But beneath their shimmer, inside a villa of quiet stone and shaded courtyards, you Cleopatra begin. Your name, though small now, will one day echo like temple bells. But for now, it is only cooed in the low, musical tones of a nursemaid who smells of rosewater and ink. She tells you stories, even though you cannot yet speak. Her voice curls around the air like incense, telling you of your blood Ptolemaic and proud, Greek and gilded. But the Nile knows better. The Nile whispers that you are not only of palaces and polished bronze, you are river daughter. You are the slow silt of empires. You are water and warmth, laughter and lineage, even before your first memory forms. Sleep comes easily in Alexandria. The sea is close, and the harbor breathes salt through open shutters. Scrolls rustle like leaves in the great library. Your father, Ptolemy, the 12th called Orlitz, the flute player, is sometimes near, sometimes far. His footsteps echo like a hesitant song in the hallway. You will learn, in time, that kings are often uncertain, and that daughters watch in silence. You do not cry much. The maids say you dream instead, that when your eyes flutter closed, the air grows still, as if the gods themselves pause to listen. You are no ordinary child, they say. Perhaps you are Isis reborn, perhaps just clever, but already they speak of you like something ancient rebloomed and still. You sleep. The years trickle forward like the Nile at dawn. You grow beneath fronds and faded murals, taught first not by tutors but by quiet. Silence is a strange kind of teacher. It teaches you what words never do. The way people glance, the pauses in conversations, the way your father avoids looking at Rome on the map. You notice everything. You begin to learn your first words in many tongues. Greek first, the tongue of your ancestors, then Egyptian, which feels like music when you speak. Your nursemaid beams when she hears it slip from your lips. Later, Latin too, though it tastes of cold stone and foreign shores. You begin to understand the palace, how the walls breathe. Secrets, how courtyards can smile or scowl, depending on who walks through them. How food appears like magic, yet always under the eyes of someone watching. You are a child. Yes, but you are already learning to rule in the quietest way. Your siblings are shadows that flicker and fade. Some older, some bitter. Some play at kindness, others at cruelty. But you float between them like incense. You learn to listen. You learn to pause. You learn to wait. The days are golden. The nights are lavender and blue. You sit in your corner of the palace garden and trace patterns in the sand with your fingers. Snakes, boats, moons. The priests pass by in white robes, whispering oaths to gods with falcon heads and sun discs. You listen. You wonder if the gods dream too, once you sneak into the library. Not the grand chamber of scrolls, not yet, but a smaller room with worn books and scrolls that smell of cedar and dust. You press your fingers to the papyrus, feeling the grooves of ink. You cannot read everything, but you try, and you will return again and again. Sometimes, late at night, you listen to your father play the flute, a lonely sound wending through the hallway like a lost river. He plays when he is sad. You don't ask why. You just close your eyes and imagine the tune as a thread, tying you both to something far away, maybe to your ancestors, maybe to each other. And still, the Nile moves. Seasons pass like slow dancers. You grow taller, your voice steadier. The priestesses braid your hair with quiet reverence. They place lotus oil behind your ears. They call you Nebet when they think you aren't listening, mistress. But you are listening, always. The world outside begins to rumble. Rome stirs. Civil wars bubble like storms behind clouds. The marble men across the sea, with their armor and their blunt laws, begin to glance toward your family. Your father grows nervous. Your tutors speak more quickly now. But you remain still. You learn that stillness is not silence. That stillness is where power hides. One afternoon, as the wind from the sea brushes your face, you hear a whisper that does not come from the wind. It says your name, no, not the one your nursemaid cussed, but the name that will one day fill songs, plays, and dusty textbooks. Cleopatra. You sit with that name a while. You say it silently to yourself. Cleopatra. Queen, one day. But not today, tonight. You lie under a linen canopy, the air warm with honey and myrrh. Somewhere, someone is reading aloud from an old scroll, the words long and slow. You do not understand them all, but the rhythm feels ancient and comforting. The moon watches you. The Nile sighs. You are not yet history. You are only a girl, a daughter of the Nile, a flicker in the tapestry of time. But oh, how softly time cradles. You now let yourself drift. Cleopatra, let the empires wait. You are still at the beginning. And so the beginning lingers, softly, as if time itself has chosen not to hurry. You are older now, though the palace still breathes the same jasmine-scented hush. The pillars cast long shadows in the heat of the day, and when they do, you slip into them like a fish, into deep water, quiet, curious. Unseen, the servants believe you spend your afternoons in embroidery or gentle music lessons, but no thread has ever held your attention quite like a question. And no lullaby sounds quite as sweet as the rustle of parchment turning. You find your way, barefoot and clever, to the side doors of the Library of Alexandria. Not the grand hall open to foreign scholars and bearded men in cloaks of learning. No, you find the quieter rooms, the dim, sun-dusted ones where the air feels thick with secrets and Sander LWOOD. Here. You are not Cleopatra, daughter of the king. You are simply a pair of eyes, wide with wonder, a heart soft with longing, a mind opening like a lotus in morning light. The librarian is old and smells of ink. His fingers are stained, his voice barely a whisper. He never questions your presence. Perhaps he, too, understands that some children belong to silence and scrolls. He lets you wander, and wander you do. You read with your fingers before you read with your eyes, feeling the texture of papyrus, the gentle press of ancient words beneath your touch. Stories of gods who weep, kings who forget, stars that fall. In love with rivers, you do not yet know what is myth and what is memory. But that is the magic. In Alexandria, they are often the same. There is a scroll about Isis that you read again and again. A queen, a goddess, a mother. She searches through the world for her beloved, pieces him back together with tears and magic. The story makes you ache, though you do not know why. Not yet. Another scroll tells of Plato and his invisible worlds, where perfect forms drift like dreams. You squint at the strange Greek, scribbled neatly down by a student long dead. But the ideas float toward you like feathers. Truth, justice, beauty. Big words for a small girl. But you taste them on your tongue like dates warmed by the sun. Sometimes, when the sun is high and the courtyards are still, you rest your head on a cool marble table and drift off in the hush of the library. Your breath blends with the pages, and in dreams you walk among the authors. Aristotle bows, Sappho sings, Homer winks. The scrolls are not quiet. They whisper. They tell you that empires are not built by muscle alone, that power is not just in the sword, but in the sentence. That language, when chosen carefully, can outlive stone. You carry this knowledge like a charm beneath your robe. You do not speak of it, not to your siblings, not even to your father. Let them learn politics. You will learn people. You will learn ideas. And so you listen to the way a servant says yes but means no, to the way a Roman envoy glances too long at your father's gold, to the stories of famine and flooding told by old gardeners and cooks. You understand early that Egypt is not just what is seen, it is what is hidden. The river is only the surface. Below it there are currents, and you are already learning to swim in them. One evening, the librarian places a sealed scroll into your hands. It is delicate, wrapped in linen and time. Poetry, he whispers, old but kind. You unwrap it like a gift. Inside, a handful of verses written in soft ink by a woman named Enit. The words are gentle, aching. They speak of bees, of childhood, of love that fades like the wind. You read them slowly, again and again. They stay with you. You do not yet know love. Not truly, but something in you understands its weight. You know the ache of missing things you haven't yet lost. You know the feeling of standing too long in your own thoughts, watching shadows stretch and sigh. You begin to write your own lines in secret, not for anyone to read, just for the quiet, just for the night. One reads, I am a girl made of water and watching, of ink that does not fade, of questions I will never ask aloud. It is not much, but it is yours. You keep it tucked beneath your bed, beside a tiny wooden carving of the goddess Martruth herself. Her feather balances every word you say, or choose not to say. As the years curl forward like smoke, you grow not just in years, but in presence. Your voice lowers, steadies. You walk differently now, come, assured. The priests nod when you pass. The tutors raise their brows. You do not shout, you do not beg, you wait. And in waiting, you learn everything. Rome grows louder. The names of generals and senators dance through the palace like restless ghosts. Pompey, Crassus, Caesar. You write their names down in your own hand, feeling the shape of each letter. They are still far away, but they are coming, and still the library waits for you. The books do not ask your title. The scrolls do not measure your worth. The words do not fear your crown. They welcome you because you are quiet, because you are listening, and in the hush between sentences, you hear a truth clearer than any your tutors have taught, that someday they will write about you. Someday your name will rest in ink, and someone not unlike yourself will whisper it before sleep. But for now, the lamp oil flickers low. The scrolls return to their shelves like leaves on a breeze, and you rest, wrapped in verses and dusk. The world turned without you for a while. Let Alexandria sleep. You are only beginning to dream. You return again, not as a child tiptoeing through corridors, but as something quieter, deeper, aware of how soft things bend the world. Time has not rushed. It rarely does in Egypt. The palm trees stretch the same as they did before, lazy in their dignity. The Nile still hums its lullaby, but now your steps are more certain, your eyes more knowing, and the world around you begins to shift. Like curtains stirred by a wind no one else notices. You are still young, but the palace watches you differently now. The servants bow a little deeper, the guards glance a little longer. Your tutors have stopped speaking to you as a girl. They speak to you as a vessel one meant to carry the weight of an entire kingdom. You listen, as always, but now you also speak. Not much at first, just questions, the kinds that make grown men pause. Why does Rome hunger for grain when its fields stretch wider than ours? Why do they call it a republic, if only a few decide? Why must a queen wear silence like jewelry? No one answers directly. That's fine. You've learned to read what is not said. So you begin to collect languages like river pebbles. 7, then 9, then more. Greek flows from you like a second heartbeat. Egyptian, you cradle like a prayer. Latin tastes like stone, but you soften it. You learn Aramaic, Ethiopian, Arabic, each one a door, each one a key, because words, you've discovered, are better than weapons, more dangerous too. When the merchant from Syria bows and speaks in his native tongue, you surprise him by answering, softly, clearly. His eyes widen and he smiles, not the smile of a man amused, but of a man disarmed. This, you note, this is the power no army can wield. Your siblings begin their own performances. Ptolemy, your younger brother, is polished and plump with royal pretense. He smiles for the statues and nods when the viziers expect it. Arsinoe, your sister, watches you like a mirror with a crack running through it. You do not dislike her, but you do not trust her reflection. Still, you remain steady. Your power grows not in proclamations, but in presence. You enter a room, and the air folds slightly to make space. You ask a question, and men lean in to answer. Even your father, once a flute-playing shadow, now regards you with the wary affection of a man who senses his own sunset. One evening, he calls you to his chambers. The light is low, the scent of frankincense curling in the corners. He does not ask if you want to rule. He simply tells you, in a whisper meant for no one else, that someday you will have to, not because you are owed it, but because no one else will understand the storm like you do. That night, you do not sleep. Instead, you walk the halls barefoot, letting the cool marble calm your thoughts. You stop in the library. It welcomes you with its familiar hush. You choose an old scroll at random. It tells the story of a Babylonian queen who governed through riddles and rain. You smile. Even here, history leaves room for women like you. When dawn arrives, you are not tired. You are resolved. You begin to spend your mornings with the scribes, not just reading, but understanding how numbers govern wheat, how taxes shape loyalty, how ink orders ships as surely as wind fills their sails. You ask about trade. You learn about treaties. You memorize the faces of Rome's envoys, their preferences, their tells. And still, you smile only when it serves you. Your nurses say you are too serious now. You still laugh, but your laughter is deliberate, like thunder that chooses when to roll. One afternoon, you were brought before a Roman, official one of many seeking favor. He expects a translator. You do not give him one. Instead, you greet him in Latin, asking how the Tiber flows this time of year. He falters. He adjusts his robe. Then he answers, carefully, "You've tilted the balance, not with force, but with familiarity." That night, as the wind moves gently through the reeds outside your window, you close your eyes and remember how it felt, how easy it is to make giants hesitate with nothing more than the right word. This, too, is power. The kind that does not shout. The kind that does not need to. Even the priests begin to murmur about you. They wonder if you are touched by Thoth, god of wisdom, or perhaps by Matet, keeper of balance. You neither confirm nor deny. Let them believe what they need to believe. Faith, too, is a language. One day, a storm rolls over the city, soft at first, then bold. You stand on the balcony, arms open to the rain. A servant rushes forward with a cloak. You wave him away. Let the sky touch you, you think. Let it know your name. You are not afraid of storms. You are learning to speak in them, and as the clouds settle and the palace hums once more with quiet, you retreat to your bed. The linen sheets cool against your skin, your thoughts folding themselves neatly, like papyrus ready for ink. You are not queen yet, but you are becoming. Let the Nile whisper its lullaby. Let the torches flicker out. The world will come soon enough. For now, you rest knowing how to name it. The world does not always announce its changes. Some arrive like lightning, others like silence. You wake one morning to find the palace has grown colder. The perfume is the same. The servants move with practiced grace, but something in the way. The curtains hang, the way the torches burn lower, tells you that the world has taken one careful step forward and left something behind. Your father is gone, the flute player, the man who wept in melody, the king who fled to Rome and returned weighed down with debts heavier than gold. He has passed into history, and you are no longer waiting in the wings. Not quite queen yet, but no longer just a daughter. Not quite on the throne, but close, enough to feel its shape in the air. The court shifts around you like reeds parting for a rising tide. Some bow too deeply, some not at all. You note each one. There is ceremony, of course. Gold collars, careful proclamations, the hiss of incense. But you do not need fanfare. You know what this truly is, the beginning within a beginning. The throne does not welcome you. It watches, and beside you, as if carved from a different story, stands your brother-husband Ptolemy the 13th, a boy in the body of a king, a crown too large for his head, his pride even larger. He was placed beside you by tradition, but he does not know how to share space with a shadow like yours. You sit beside him in court, your fingers calm, your gaze soft. You do not speak over him, you do not rise when he does, but you answer questions he cannot. You offer solutions before he knows the problems. You sign your name with fewer flourishes, but firmer strokes, and that is enough. Enough for the viziers to whisper, enough for the court to murmur, enough for the boy to grow restless, jealous, afraid. But fear is not your burden. You have studied too long for that. When Rome sends another envoy, you meet him not in gold, but in words. Latin on your tongue, like honey mixed with salt. You charm. You explain. You offer assurance, where your brother would offer offense. The envoy returns to Rome more curious than suspicious. You have made another subtle move. The days stretch like papyrus left in the sun. You walk the corridors with quiet grace, nodding to the priests, the cooks, the guards. You do not raise your voice. You do not make demands. But slowly, things begin to bend toward you. A new garden is planted near your wing. Fresh scrolls appear. In your study, your name is spoken first in the prayer rituals. And yet, you remain still. You understand, now more than ever, that power is a kind of quiet, a waiting, a breath held between storms. But not everyone understands your silence. Ptolemy begins to bristle. His advisors fill his ears with warnings that you are too clever, too beloved, too strong to be merely equal. And slowly, almost lazily, he begins to erase you. First from the coins your face, replaced by his alone. Then from the decrees your name, written in smaller letters. Then from the court summons sent without your seal. You do not protest. Instead, you retreat to the oldest part of the palace, a room wrapped in mosaics and cool stone. You light a single oil lamp and sit in the hush of painted goddesses and forgotten songs. You write, not declarations, not threats, just a name. Yours, Cleopatra, Theophilipata, goddess, beloved of her father. Queen, you do not speak the words aloud, but you let them rest against the walls, like spells that need only time, and time, as always, is listening. Your allies remain silent, but loyal. A priest offers a longer than usual bow. A merchant refuses to alter a deal without your voice. A servant slips you the details of a secret meeting between Ptolemy's men and foreign soldiers. Ah, so he plans to remove more than your name. Very well, you leave the palace with the sunrise. No speeches, no swords, just a small caravan, and a queen whose eyes hold centuries. You walk out as if for a journey, not an exile, because in truth you are not fleeing. You are gathering. The desert receives you not with harshness, but with quiet reverence. You sleep in tents that smell of date syrup and myrrh. You write by starlight. You plan by moonlight. You speak softly, but your words ripple across the sands. In time, you will return, with allies, with ships, with a story written in wind, but for now, you sleep, wrapped in linen and resolve. Your heartbeat slowed by the knowledge that empires do not always need thrones to begin. Sometimes they begin like this, in the hush of exile, in the pause between betrayal and rebirth, in the breath before you become legend. Let the stars keep watch. Let the desert cradle your dreams. Let your brother believe he has one. You are not gone, you are only waiting. And now, your footsteps are no longer softened by marble, but by sand. The palace is far behind you, its gold, its silence, its treacherous rooms. In its place, dunes that whisper like old women, winds that carry secrets instead of incense. You are no longer cloaked in silk, but in resolve, no longer seated beside a boy king, but upon the uncertain edge of exile. And still, you are calm. The desert does not frighten you. It listens. It speaks to you in ways your brother never could. Every gust of wind is a warning. Every oasis a promise. You learn to read it like a scroll, slowly, carefully, and it teaches you patience. You travel with few, a loyal handful, not nobles, not generals, just those who saw through the quiet and recognized something sharper. A merchant who once kissed your ring and never forgot your fairness. A scribe whose hands still shake, but who follows your orders like prayers. A soldier with a scar down his cheek, who once watched you speak to Rome without flinching. They do not call you queen, they call you Cleopatra, and that is enough. At night, you sleep beneath canvas, the stars like tiny witnesses above your brow. They blink lazily as if to say, yes, we see you. Yes, we remember. The air cools your skin, and the ground hums with ancient memories. You are not alone. The land itself remembers queens, and you are becoming one. But land cannot carry you where you must go. That task belongs to water. One evening, as the sky burns with amber, a ship waits for you. Its sails are plain, its crew rough and sun-wrinkled. But its captain bows deeply, eyes lowered, for he knows who you are, Revan, if the world dares to forget. You board with quiet dignity, no trumpets, no proclamations, just the creak of wood, the salt of the sea, and the steady breath of a woman who has not yet begun her storm. The ship is small, but it carries a great weight. Not cargo, not weapons, but hope, and something heavier still, your name, your destiny. Wrapped in the hush between waves, you do not fear the sea. You sit at its edge with your knees drawn up, watching as the stars are reflected in its ever-changing face. It does not flatter you. It does not obey, but it listens. And that too is a kind of allegiance. By day, the men speak in low tones. They whisper of Rome, of Caesar, of battles not yet fought. You let them talk. Let them wonder. They do not know the woman on this boat once walked the halls of Alexandria, with scrolls in her hands and entire languages in her mouth. They do not know that the girl who slept beneath library shelves has become the woman sailing toward a civil war, not of her making but perhaps of her shaping. And then, at last, you arrive. The port of Pelusium rises from the mist like a forgotten god. Roman soldiers bustle at the docks, faces taut with duty and sand. Your cloak is pulled tighter, your eyes lowered. You are no fool. A queen must also know how to become invisible just long enough to choose when to reappear. Because this is not a mere return. This is a performance. The city simmers with tension. Pompey is dead betrayed upon arrival. Caesar is here already, tangled in Egyptian politics like silk caught in thorns. Your brother's men tighten their grip on Alexandria. You hear of their threats, their sneers, their war songs, but you do not enter through the gates. You enter through the shadows. There are many stories of how you came to Caesar. Some say you rode to him cloaked and veiled. Others say you were bound in a rug, rolled like a treasure, and delivered to him like a gift. You'll remember it differently, not with fear, not with grandeur, but with the quiet breath of someone who knows this is the moment. You cross the threshold into his presence. He is older than you expected, weathered, sharp, not golden, but grey. Like a storm, his eyes meet yours, and the world does not tilt, it waits. He says your name with curiosity, Cleopatra, and you do not flinch. You smile, a soft, knowing smile. One you have practiced not before mirrors, but in scrolls, in silence, in strategy. You speak, in Latin. Perfectly he listens, and something opens in the room. Not love, not yet, but recognition. He sees not just a girl, not just an exile. He sees an equal dot. The conversation drifts long into the night. You speak of Egypt not in poetry, but in numbers, trade, famine, legacy. You do not plead. You offer, not your throne, not your body, but your mind. And Caesar listens. The sea outside laps gently against the harbour stones. The air is thick with myrrh and smoke, but within there is only stillness. The stillness of two minds measuring each other, not as enemies, not as lovers, but as players in a very old game. When you leave that room, you are no longer in exile. You are not yet queen in title, but you are queen in motion. And that, you know, is the beginning of every empire worth dreaming tonight. As the ship's rigging clinks faintly in the wind and Alexandria breathes sleep into your lungs, you rest, you are not afraid, you are no longer hidden. You are no longer waiting, you are at sea and yet utterly home. The morning after your meeting with Caesar arrives quietly. No trumpets, no decree, just the light of the Egyptian sun filtering through pale linen curtains, and the hush of something shifting. You rise not as a girl returning home, but as a storm that has just touched shore. Your exile is over, but your trial has only begun. Outside, Alexandria waits, still torn between thrones. Your brother Ptolemy XIII paces in gilded halls, surrounded by advisors who whisper words like swords. But you walk the palace again, step by measured step, as if you never left. You do not raise your voice, you do not proclaim, you only arrive like the Nile in flood season, and Caesar stands beside you, not as a conqueror, not yet as a lover, but as a man who has weighed your mind and found it sharper than steel. Together you face the court. Together you present unity. But Egypt is not so easily calmed. The streets murmur with unrest. The palace walls tremble with tension. And your brother, your Karula, your rival gathers, his soldiers like clouds gather thunder. War simmers at the edge of every conversation. But still, you play your part. Each evening, you meet with Caesar in shadowed corners of the palace. Your voice is low, your words deliberate. You do not flatter, you inform. You show him the layers of your kingdom, its temples, its farmers, its history etched deeper than any Roman stone. He listens, always listening. You do not know yet what this is between you. It is not trust, not tenderness, but it is something. Perhaps it is recognition. Perhaps it is the beginning of something stranger than love and alliance written not in hearts, but in histories. And then the fire comes. Alexandria burns. The war, like a thread pulled too tight, snaps. Riots boil in the streets. Your brothers' forces clash with Caesar's. The people cry out. The air is heavy with smoke and judgment. And somewhere, mid-flame and panicked, the great library is caught in the chaos. You do not know how much is lost. You only know the silence it leaves. Behind you, retreat with Caesar to the palace island, trapped, but not beaten. Together, you endure a siege. The water below reflects fire. The sky above is thick with grief. But within, you remain composed. You do not cry. You do not collapse. You study the maps. You soothe the frightened. You write messages in every tongue. You know, seeking reinforcements, promising future peace. Caesar watches you not as a girl beside him, but as a ruler equal in the blaze. You survive this siege not with swords, but with clarity. And one morning, after weeks of uncertainty, Rome's ships arrive. The battle shifts. The war breathes its last breath. And your brother flees, drowns in the Nile, they say. A tragic end or a just one, it depends on who tells the story. You do not celebrate. Instead, you sit in your chambers that evening, wrapped in linen the color of pearl. The windows are open. The night air carries a smell of seawater and scorched papyrus. You think of the scrolls, the voices lost, the knowledge burned to ash. You press your fingers to your pulse and whisper, "We begin again and begin." You do. You are queen, now not in name only, but in soul. You rule not with thunder, but with calm hands. Not with fire, but with fire's memory. The people slowly return to their rhythms. The city rebuilds. The palace, though wounded, still stands. And beside you sometimes, near, sometimes distant remains Caesar. There is something between you now that cannot be named. Something that flickers in candlelight, in stolen glances, in the quiet when both of you are too tired to be clever. He kisses you one night without ceremony, like a decision already made. And you let him, because this, too, is part of the story. Your people will question. Rome will sneer. But you do not answer to them. You answer to Egypt, to the gods, to the river that raised you, to the wind that carried. You home soon, you will carry a child. But tonight, you carry only silence and dreams. You lie beside Caesar as the palace hums with moonlight. Your body curved into softness, your breath slow as the tides. You think of the women who came before Berenice, Arsinoe, Cleopatra, each lost in some tangle of love and power. You wonder what they would think of you. You do not ask for their approval. Instead, you sleep, wrapped in linen, wrapped in a name that is no longer waiting to be made. You are Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile, wife to no man, and yet mistress of many fates. Let the night cradle you. Let the fire rest in embers. You have sailed into history, and now you drift. The sea no longer separates you from Rome. It lives now in your chambers, in the way Caesar walks measured, impatient, imperial. In the scrolls he reads aloud to you, half for your amusement, half to test if you'll challenge him. You always do. Your world has shifted again. You no longer sleep alone. Some nights, you drift off beside him, your head resting on his shoulder, his voice murmuring soft Latin phrases you barely catch before sleep pulls you under. Other nights, you lie awake, tracing the ceiling with your thoughts, while his breath deepens beside you steady. Unbothered, he sleeps like a man who has never feared drowning. You do not anymore. The city is rebuilding, but the whispers never stop. Your name floats on the breeze with equal parts reverence and scandal. Queen, temptress, strategist, sorceress. They call you many things. Let them. You do not answer to their stories. You are too busy writing your own. Each day you return to the rhythms of rule, not the showy parts, the parades, the proclamations, but the quiet rituals, reviewing the ledgers, meeting with elders, walking among the common folk. You learn their names, their fears. You watch as they begin to believe in you again, because you are not just returning, you are rising. Caesar watches you sometimes when he thinks you aren't looking, not as a lover watches a mistress, but as a general watches a storm just beyond the horizon, admiring, calculating, perhaps a little afraid. You remind him that Egypt is not a prize, it is a world, and you are its voice. When the sun sets, Alexandria transforms. The golden light wraps every surface, temples, gardens, skin into something divine. You host feasts, not for luxury, but for diplomacy. You wear gowns, dyed with saffron and indigo, your wrists heavy with lapis and bronze. But it is your words that dazzle. You speak in Greek to the poets, in Latin to the Romans, in Egyptian to the priests, and in silence. To Caesar you have learned that silence, used properly, can command more than a legion. He tells you, one night between laughter and wine, that Rome is changing, that the Senate watches him with narrowed eyes, that he has plans, and you nod. You understand plans, but more than that, you understand futures. Yours is forming quietly in your womb. The child grows like a whisper beneath your ribs. Not a threat, not a weapon, but a symbol, a thread woven from two worlds. You call him Caesarian Little Caesar, though there is nothing little about the life he will carry. You do not tell the city at once. Instead, you let the people see, let them whisper, let them wonder. And when he is born, the palace does not erupt in song, but in stillness, as if all of Egypt is holding its breath. He is perfect, and when you hold him for the first time, the weight of him presses something open. In your chest, not fear, not pride, but something quieter. Hope, a hope that maybe this child can be the bridge between river and empire, between mother and monarch, between yesterday's dust and tomorrow's flame. Caesar visits him, holds him, smiles with that rare softness he keeps locked behind armor and strategy. You do not speak of the future. You do not ask what he will tell Rome. You know better. Rome is not built on honesty, but you are not built on fear. You take Caesarion into your arms and walk him down the royal garden path, pointing at each statue, each tree, each god carved into the walls. You speak to him in Greek, then Egyptian, then, softly, in Latin. He gurgles. You smile. He does not yet understand the burden of names, the weight of dynasties, the sharp edge of expectation. Let him remain weightless for now, and so the golden nights continue, feasts, laughter, scrolls, stars, and always the slow, humming tension that Rome may soon recall its favorite son, when that time comes. Caesar takes your hand beneath the painted ceiling of your private hall. He does not promise to stay. He does not say what will become of you, but he looks at you with something like certainty. You are unlike any queen I've ever known. He says. You raise one brow. You haven't known many queens. He laughs. The kind of laugh that remembers it is mortal. That night you sleep more deeply than usual, not because you are certain of tomorrow, but because you have already survived so many yesterdays. You sleep with Caesar beside you, your child in the next room, and your name echoing gently through the halls. Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile, mother of a prince, daughter of storms, maker of futures. Let the world turn. Tonight you are whole. Let dreams gather around you like perfume. Let the city exhale. Let the moon keep watch. You sleep now in gold, and your dreams are the shape of empires. And now he is here. The boy with your eyes, the child with Caesar's silence, the river's breath made flesh, Caesarion. You whisper his name like a lullaby as you hold him close to your heart, his tiny chest rising and falling like the gentle tide of the Nile at dawn. The wet nurse dozes in the corner, the lamps flicker low, and outside your chamber, the world is wrapped in the hush of midnight, but you are wide awake, not with fear, not with doubt, with awe. It's strange after wars and whispers, after exile and fire, that it is this quiet moment, this sleeping infant in your arms, that feels most powerful of all. He stirs, not from hunger, not from restlessness, from instinct. He knows. He is someone. You see it in the way he opens his eyes, not with confusion, but with calm, as if he is remembering something very old. The Nile has always remembered its children. You bring him out to the gardens in the soft mornings. You show him the lilies and the shadows. You point to the ibis birds that strut near the pools, to the figs hanging low from heavy branches. You whisper to him in Greek, then in Egyptian, and finally, though rarely in Latin, he listens, or rather, he absorbs, as if even now, his little body knows that he will belong to more than one world. The court, of course, watches, some with joy, some with skepticism, some with the tight smiles of men who wonder what this child means for their ambitions. But no one dares say it outright. Not yet, for now the queen is radiant. The child is beautiful. The Roman is gone, but not forgotten. Caesar has returned to Rome. His departure was not sudden, not cruel, just inevitable. You did not weep. You did not beg. You kissed him on the cheek and said, "Take care of your empire." He looked at you, long and strange, and said, "Take care of ours." And so he left. And you remained with Caesarion in your arms, and an empire that now feels strangely alive again. You do not shrink into motherhood. You do not pause, instead. You rule, not as a queen who waits for Rome's approval, but as a goddess, reborn beneath the midday sun. You visit temples with your son in tow. You sit in court with him, nestled at your side, his fingers curled around your sash. He is not a symbol, he is a presence. The people begin to chant his name. Little Caesar, son of the Nile, heir to the lotus and the eagle. You commission statues of him not too large, not too loud, just enough to let the world know. The line continues. The river flows on. At night, you tell him stories, not of fairies, not of monsters, but of women who walked among gods. You speak of Isis and her love that refused to die, of Nut, the sky mother who wrapped the stars in her arms, of your own mother, long gone, who once sang to you in the shade of the fig tree. You hum to him in the quietest hours, your fingers brushing his brow as sleep overtakes him, and in the silence you wonder, will he rule? Will he fight? Will he forgive? Will he be Roman or Egyptian or both? Will he remember these soft nights, these golden lullabies, the scent of jasmine drifting in from the garden? You hope so, but you know how history works. It forgets softness. It remembers battles. So you do what all mothers do, even queens. You memorize him, his breath against your collarbone, the way his eyelashes stick together when he dreams, the way his tiny hand grips your finger like it is the center of the universe. And for now it is. You hold him against the tides of politics and time. You walk him through the palace gardens like a prayer. You mark each milestone in your mind not with chisel and stone, but with kisses and laughter. He grows. Too fast, soon he will walk. Soon he will speak. Soon the world will want something from him. But tonight, he is just your son, and you. You are not a queen, not a strategist, not a diplomat, not a goddess. You are just a woman with her child beneath the stars, breathing in the sacred quiet of a world that for this one moment is utterly at peace. Let the gods wait, let Rome speak. Let tomorrow decide what kind of ruler he will be. Tonight, you hum to him softly. He carries your blood, he carries your dreams, he carries the Nile, and you carry him. But even the most peaceful nights know how to end, and now you feel it. Not as thunder, not as fire, but as a shift soft, like silk, tugging gently across the skin. A change in the wind that carries no sound, only certainty. Rome is restless. You sense it first in the letters. Thin scrolls, sealed in wax, bearing Caesar's hand. His words are measured, formal, no longer personal. You read them by lamplight, cradling Caesarion in your lap. The letters say much about law and policy, about the Senate, about reforms, about how things are complicated. But not once do they say, "Miss." Not once do they say, soon. You do not flinch. You have read history. You know what happens to men who climb too high, too fast, in a city built on suspicion, and still, you had hoped. He had promised nothing. You had expected nothing. But still, you rise the next day and do what queens do. You do not ache in public. You do not pause. You adjust your gold collar, gather your robes, and walk into court with the serenity of a goddess carved from lapis dot, because Alexandria still breathes, because Egypt still turns, because your son still sleeps with his fingers. Curled around your braid, the court begins to murmur, always murmuring. Rome watches. Rome judges. Rome whispers that you were a distraction, a phase, a rumor from the east. They forget that your name is older than their walls. They forget that you do not beg, so you write your own letters, not to Caesar, but to his enemies, to his allies, to merchants and generals, diplomats and thinkers. You sew your name into the web before it tightens because you've learned the pattern, and because patterns, like power, belong to those who study them closely. Then the news arrives. A dagger, a senate floor, a pool of blood not yet cooled when the name Cleopatra is whispered once again this time. In Rome, in corners, in markets, in halls heavy with echoes. Julius Caesar is dead, assassinated. You do not scream, you do not collapse. You hold your child. A little closer, you close the shutters of your chambers and light a single lamp, and you sit in silence. Because grief is not always loud, you think of his hands, calloused from years of campaigns, his voice when he recited Virgil by moonlight, his laugh rare but sharp, and how, for all his power, he once held your child like the most delicate thing in the world. You do not cry for Caesar. You cry for the unraveling. You cry for the future. You almost saw, but only for a moment, because war is coming. Rome does not weep long. It roars. A power struggle erupts. Octavian, his heir in name. Mark Antony, his heir in ambition. Brutus, Cassius, others with daggers still warm. Rome eats its dead quickly, then marches onward, and you must choose. You watch carefully. You measure the winds. Octavian is young, icy, careful. A shadow of Caesar's shape, but not his fire. Mark Antony is different, loud, golden, hungry and foolish, perhaps. But you understand hunger. You begin correspondence. Small at first, subtle. You wait. You listen, and one day, word reaches you. Mark Antony wants to meet. You are not surprised. The world forgets that Egypt is not a corner of the map. It is a crown, a legend, a prize, and you. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are deciding who is worth your name. The court leans in. The priests prepare omens. The merchants stock their ships with silk and wine. And you begin preparing, not for war but for entrance. Not just into Antony's world, but into the next act of your own at night. Caesarion sleeps peacefully, unaware that the winds have turned, that thrones shift, that alliances crumble, that his mother is already building the bridge that may save them both. You watch him, his breath slow, his body wrapped in soft linen. You brush a curl from his brow and hum an old melody, one you barely remember. One your nursemaid sang to you long ago, in the days before destiny had a name. The night is warm, the air is thick with meaning, and you are already halfway across the sea. The sea stretches before you again, but this time you do not sail in secrecy. You arrive in splendor. The winds are warm and restless. The sails bloom like lotus petals, and the boat your boat is no simple vessel. It is a floating temple, carved with silver, painted with gold, heavy with perfume. Musicians play softly on the deck. Silk curtains stir with every breeze. You do not hide. You approach as the goddess you have been whispered to be, because now you understand, power is not always about who commands. Sometimes it is about who chooses how to arrive. Mark Antony awaits you in Tarsus. He expects a ruler in exile. You give him a legend in motion. He stands on the shore, blinking beneath his helmet, not from the sun, but from something brighter, something strange, something wrapped in incense and memory. You step onto the dock with bare feet and bangles. You do not speak at first. You let the silence settle like incense around both of you. Then, calmly, in perfect Greek, you say his name. He bows, not deeply, not completely, but enough. You have already won the first moment. Antony is different from Caesar, rougher, louder, looser, but no less dangerous. He laughs often and drinks like the gods won't notice. He talks with his hands and boasts with his eyes. But beneath the theatrics, you see something familiar. Loneliness, the kind that powerful men carry in secret. The kind that creeps in after victory. The kind that you, too, have worn like a second skin. And so, you stay. Not just for politics, not just for Egypt, but for curiosity. Because Mark Antony makes the world louder, and you have spent too long in silence. In the evenings, you dine together on long terraces. You serve figs dipped in honey and wine mixed with rose water. He tells you about Ramit's fractures, its ferocity. You tell him about Alexandria, its myths, its tides, its beauty. He laughs when you recite poetry. You raise a brow when he quotes philosophy. There is no shy courtship, number, slow dance. You are two storms meeting at sea, and it feels inevitable. Soon, the rumors return. Of course they do. Rome whispers, Alexandria hums. Two rulers, one bed, one future, but let them whisper. You are used to being a myth. You return to Egypt together. His ships follow yours like shadows, and when you step once more onto your homeland, it is not as a widow of Caesar, or a queen in mourning. You return as something new as we dot the people line the streets. Some cheer, some stare, but all watch. You walk beside him not like a lover, but like a mirror, both powerful, both flawed, both already written in too many languages. The palace is alive again. The halls echo with music. The gardens bloom brighter. The wine flows faster. And you, Queen of Egypt, do not fade into the background. You rule beside him, but not beneath him. He sees it. He respects it. He resists it sometimes, but never denies it. You bear him children, twins, first a boy and a girl, later another son, each one another thread between your blood and his. And still, the world watches. Rome grows colder. Octavian, that careful serpent, sharpens his words into swords. He accuses, he threatens, he paints you in shadows, sorceress, seductress, Eastern plague. Antony is his rival. You are his target, but you do not blink. You prepare, you strengthen alliances, you build ships, you gather grain, you count the loyalty of cities like stars in a map. Because this is not love without weight. This is not passion without plan. This is empire. And at night, when the laughter fades and the courtiers sleep, you and Antony sit on the stone balcony, watching the torches flicker in the harbor. Sometimes you speak. Sometimes you don't sometimes. He traces the lines of your wrist like he's memorizing your pulse. Sometimes you look at the horizon and wonder how long it will be yours, because something in the wind is shifting again. The silk is still soft, but the storms are coming, and this time they will not be gentle. So you breathe deeply. You take in the scent of warm jasmine. You close your eyes. You are still queen, still mother, still flame. And for now, you are not alone. Let the sea sleep. Let the empire dream. You are wrapped in silk, but braced for thunder. The palace is full of voices again. Not whispers, but laughter loud, indulgent, unapologetic. Your name no longer drifts in secret through Roman halls. It dances on goblets. It glows in TORCHLIGHT. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, Mistress of the East, the one who rules beside Antony, with one hand on the Nile, the other on his heart. It's no longer a private affair, no longer strategy wrapped in silk. It is spectacle, and you allow it, because for the first time in a long time, the world sees you not as someone Rome must tame, but as someone it must reckon with. You and Antony become legend in motion. Two thrones, two lovers, two rulers, drunk on power and proximity. But this is not just about pleasure. This is politics, served with wine and garnished with roses, at the banquet of the inimitable livers. You wear gold threaded through your hair, a robe dyed the color of pomegranates. You recline beside Antony as musicians play, servants pour honeyed wine, and poets recite verses too flowery to be true. But no one cares, because you are not throwing a feast. You are crafting a world. One where East and West swirl together. One where Alexandria outshines Rome. One where gods might be watching and smiling. The people of Egypt adore it. They truly see you for what you are, not just a ruler, but a reflection of something divine. A woman who does not shrink beside power, but matches it, shapes it, softens it, commands it. Antony, for all his bravado, leans into this new life. He dresses like Osiris. He calls you Isis, not in jest, not in flattery, but as truth. You appear together in public, robed in symbolism. You perform rituals, offer blessings, blend Egyptian and Roman rites with practiced grace. And when you look into the crowd, you see more than faces. You see belief. They believe in you. And that is the rarest power of all. Behind the splendor, though, the air is tightening. Octavian sharpens his accusations like a blade in the dark. He speaks in Rome of Eastern decadence, of a queen who has bewitched a general, of Egyptian gold funding Roman betrayal. He is building a war, piece by piece, word by word, but you are not afraid. You know how men react to women who do not ask permission. You prepare, quietly. You meet with captains. You inspect ports. You send spies into the cities that sit like question marks along the Mediterranean. Antony, too, begins to stir. He speaks more of legions than liars now. He studies maps as often as your mouth. But still, the wine flows. Still, the nights are warm. Still, the two of you lie beside each other, skin against skin, empire against empire, and dream out loud. You speak of a new world, a shared crown, a capital not in Rome or Alexandria but in the space between, a place neither fully Roman nor fully Egyptian, a place for your children, yes, children, not just Caesarean, now growing tall and clever beneath your watchful gaze, but also the twins. Helios and Cleopatra, Selene and young Ptolemy, Philadelphus, still wide-eyed and full of wonder. They play in the gardens while the adults dream of borders. You walk with them at sunset, your fingers brushing their shoulders. You tell them stories of stars that guide sailors, of crocodiles who guard temples, of women who ruled when men still hunted shadows. You kiss their foreheads and promise them the world, and you mean it. But even the most beautiful feasts must end. Even the most golden wine turns bitter. The letters from Rome grow colder. The alliances grow thin. Some of Antony's generals grow restless, unsure whether to follow their hearts or their homeland. And Octavian, he sharpens not just swords but stories. He names you both traitors. He declares war not on Antony, but on you. It is a brilliant move. A Roman declaration of war on Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Not a man, not a state, a woman. Let the Senate squirm. Let the legions prepare. You stand at the balcony one night, barefoot, the marble cool beneath your skin. Antony joins you. He says nothing. Neither do you. You both look toward the sea, and you know the silk is about to tear. The wine is about to sour. The world is about to tip. But tonight, before the first sword is drawn, before the first ship is sunk, before history shifts again, you sleep beside him to thrones. One bed, one breath, and somewhere deep in the belly of the night, you remember a line of poetry you read once in the old library. Those who burn too brightly forget to fear the dark. But you are not afraid. You are the flame. You are the night. And you are not done. War, when it truly begins, makes no sound. It begins in glances, in pauses, in the slow turning of loyal men toward uncertain ground. And now it is beginning again. But there are no drums yet, no trumpets, no clashing swords. Just a queen standing beside her general, watching the horizon shift color by color, shade by shade. You have seen it before. The slow unraveling of trust, the tightening of whispers, the way maps start to look like wounds. Octavian does not march with banners. He marches with rumors. He tells Rome you are dangerous, not because of your armies, but because of your voice. Because you are not Roman, because you are not silent, because you are not his. He spreads tales of your luxury, your spells, your foreignness. He does not need to prove anything. He only needs them to believe, and belief, you know, is stronger than iron. In Alexandria, you prepare, not loudly, not out of fear, but like a woman laying out her robes for the morning year. Calm, methodical ritual. You meet with generals. You study the sea. You choose which cities to defend, which harbors to fortify, which messages to send across. Salt and wind. You do not blink. You do not sigh. This is what you've been doing all your life, learning how to hold steady in the swell before the wave. Antony changes too. He laughs less, drinks more, speaks more of honor, of fate, of Rome. He is still yours, still fiery, but now the flame flickers. You try to reach him in the evenings, not through battle plans or declarations, but with memory. You speak of your first meeting, in Tarsus, of the boat wrapped in perfume, of the garden feasts and the poetry of the children. He listens, but there's a fog in his eyes now, not doubt in you but in himself. You reach for his hand, and he holds it tightly, not like a man in love, like a man trying to anchor himself. And still, the battles do not begin. They wait. You can feel them, trembling at the edge of the world. You walk the palace halls with measured grace. Your children's laughter echoes behind pillars. Caesarion, almost grown now, sits in the library and reads aloud to his tutors in a voice too steady for his age. He asks questions about Rome, about loyalty, about his father. You answer what you can, and what you cannot too wrap in silence. One day, as you sit beneath the fig tree, Cleopatra Selene curls in your lap. "Will we win, mother?" she asks, her voice light as a feather. You do not lie, you say, "We will survive." Because even in the dust of history, survival is victory. The council meets daily now. Reports arrive of ships gathering near Actium, of Octavian's fleets tightening like nets, of allies turning their cloaks. You nod, you note. You do not panic. You wear your crown with a stillness that unsettles the men around you. You've seen storms. You've walked through fire. You've given birth while Rome turned its back. You can do this too. Each night the candles flicker longer, the prayers grow louder, the priests read omens in the stars. Some are grim, some are vague, but none frighten you, because omens are just stories waiting for meaning, and you have always written your own. Antony trains again, his armor polished, his men loyal if tired. You watch from a distance as he moves through formations, barking commands, trying to become the soldier he once was, trying to remember who he is outside of you. You do not interrupt. You know how important it is for a man like him to find his own reflection again. And so you wait, not passively. You write letters to your cities, to your allies, to the temples. You remind them of the Nile, of balance, of what peace has felt like under your rule. You ask not for loyalty, but for memory, and still, no battle, just the breath before. You lie awake most nights, now not in fear, but in stillness, listening, watching the ceiling, remembering the texture of scrolls in your hands as a girl, the sound of the Nile brushing against the harbor wall, the way Caesar spoke your name like a question, and now Antony, the second man to hold your trust. You know he will fight. You know he may fall. But you also know this: you will not be the last queen to be misunderstood. You will not be the last woman blamed for a war she did not start. History has its patterns, but you are not done shaping them. So tonight, before the first oar dips into the sea, before the sails rise, before the smoke clouds the sky, you close your eyes, let the world spin, let the gods whisper. You are not afraid, the battle is coming, but you are already ready. It begins not with the clash of steel, but with the quiet flap of sails. Actium.A. Name the poets will write with fire, and the sea will remember with salt. The horizon fills with ships, Roman ships, Egyptian ships, painted prows and eyes meant to frighten ghosts. The sun does not favor either side. It simply rises, casting its golden light over both armies, as if unaware that by nightfall one will burn. You are not on the shore. You are on the water, draped in royal robes, standing aboard your flagship, your eyes steady, your breath calm, your hands gripping the polished wood rail, not in fear, but in focus. Around you, your fleet moves with quiet precision. The sea is smooth, pretending for now to be still. Mark Antony stands beside you, armor gleaming, jaw set, the familiar furrow between his brows now carved like marble. He does not speak, neither do you. There is nothing left to say. War speaks. For you now, the Roman fleet, under Octavian's command, begins its slow approach, like wolves closing in. They outnumber you. They are leaner, faster. But you have something else, a memory, a myth, a name that cannot drown. You watch the first arrows fly, arching through the pale sky, the first oars churn, the first ships creak, crash, catch, fire, smoke blossoms like ink in water. Men shout, orders blur, and yet you remain still, because you know something they do not. The sea does not care for kings, nor generals, nor gods, it only carries. Antony shouts, commands now, and his voice is hoarse, alive with fury and grit. His men answer, they trust him, but something is wrong. The wind, perhaps, the movement of ships, too slow. Or maybe it's the scent in the air, a kind of inevitability. Then the moment comes. A Roman flank breaks through. Chaos rises. You see it, clear as prophecy. And you decide, not out of fear, not out of cowardice, out of calculation. You give the signal. Your ships, your Egyptian fleet, begin to retreat, turning east, slipping through the madness. You sail away, not into defeat, but into a different future. Antony sees. He falters. Some say he thinks you've abandoned him, but you know the truth. You did not abandon him. You saved what you could. The rest, the sea would decide. Back in Alexandria, the days feel thinner. Antony returns, broken. He does not speak for a long time. His armor remains dusty in the corner, untouched. You sit with him, not as queen and general, but as woman and man. He asks you if it was a betrayal. You say no. You ask him if he still believes in the sun. He doesn't answer, but slowly he begins to move again, not with fire, but with ashdot. You rebuild the fleet, quietly, desperately, but you both know the tide has turned. The sea, when it takes something, rarely gives it back. Still, you do not collapse, because there is more to do. You walk through the city again. Your people do not look away. They do not cheer either. They simply look, and you meet their eyes. You are not the queen they sang for, but you are the queen who stayed. Night, the children sleep beneath linen, their dreams untroubled. You kiss Caesarion's forehead and run your fingers along the curves of the constellation chart he studies by lamplight. You wonder what stars he'll sail under. You wonder if the sea will be kinder to him. One night, Antony wakes you with a whisper. I should have followed you, he says. You take his hand. You still can, but the war moves closer. Octavian is not a man who forgets, and yet you do not run. You sleep more deeply than you expected. Perhaps because you've done what you could. Perhaps because the sea does not regret, and neither do you. Tomorrow, the sky may darken, but tonight, the waves are quiet again. Let them rest. Let your body soften. Let the past drift. Away like smoke on salt water, you are Cleopatra, the sea. Did not choose sides, but it carried you all the same. The world grows quiet again, not peaceful, only quiet, like the pause after thunder, like the hush before the final breath. You are home, not the home of childhood whispers and garden breezes, not the home of feasts and laughter and the scent of roses and wine. That's home is heavier. This Alexandria feels more like memory than city now. The streets still gleam in the sun. The waves still press against the harbor. But something has shifted in the bones of the place. You feel it when you wake. The way the breeze no longer carries hope. The way even the priests speak in lower tones. The way the marble pillars seem to sigh as you walk past. And yet you remain queen. Your gold still glints in the sunlight. Your steps are still measured. Your gaze still steady. You wear your grief as one might wear armor, not to hide it, but to carry it with dignity. Antony has grown thin. Quieter now, slower. His voice, once filled with boast and fire, has softened into something more brittle. Some days he smiles. Some days he doesn't speak at all. You do not ask, you sit with him. In the afternoons, your hands resting on your lap, listening to the garden wind and the low coo of birds on the terrace. You talk about small things, the way the sun strikes the walls of the Serapeum, the scent of myrrh burning in the temple, the patterns of clouds. Neither of you says what you both feel, that the end is close, that the empire is slipping between your fingers, that Octavian marches not toward negotiation, but toward erasure. You've seen the reports. You've spoken with your captains. The fleet is weak. The army is tired. The people, though loyal, are afraid. But still, you do not run. You have never run. One evening, as the sky purples with the arrival of night, you climb the tallest tower in the palace and look out across your city. You see the flickering lanterns of fishermen. You see the quiet procession of priests in the temple below. You see the stars beginning to blink into view. And you remember something. When you were a girl, you used to imagine the stars were gods watching the world from afar, blinking, slowly, patiently, waiting for mortals to remember their place. Now, you wonder if they are simply old fires, drifting further away. Even queens, you realize, must sleep under the stars. You sit on a cushion and let the wind undo the pins in your hair. Let it carry away whatever remains of ceremony. Let it kiss your skin, not as ruler, but as woman. For a long time, you do not move. You think of your children, how they laughed in the fountains, how they held figs in both hands and wore gold like it was sunlight. You think of Caesarion, now tall, with his father's eyes in your careful silence. You think of all the names history has given you, and all the ones it will steal. Seductress, sorceress, savior, wife, widow, woman, queen. You are all of them, and still something more later. You descend the tower slowly, barefoot, robes loose, shoulders bare to the night. Antony is waiting in the courtyard, staring up at the same stars. He doesn't turn when you approach. You sit beside him without a word, and for a long while you say nothing. Then he speaks, softly. I've lost everything, and you, just as softly. Not everything, not yet. You reach for his hand, it trembles, not with fear, but with the weight of everything that cannot be undone. You sleep in separate rooms that night, as you often do now. But you both lie awake longer than usual, you, staring at the ceiling of painted Gotsis's nut, Hatha women with wings and crowns and open arms. You wonder if they felt sorrow too, if they too longed for a different ending. The night air carries the scent of papyrus and oil. Somewhere, a musician plays a low, mournful tune on a flute. It rises through the palace like mist, and still you breathe, because even now, especially now, you are queen, and queens do not close their eyes in fear. They close them in readiness. Let the stars keep watch. Let the city rest its tired bones. Let history write whatever ending it needs. For now, you are here, alive, steady, wrapped in silence, and even queens must sleep. The air is thick with fragrance. Lotus, myrrh, saffron, not for seduction, now no, but for memory, for ritual, for something final. The palace does not weep. It prepares. The marble floors are scrubbed clean. The torches burn brighter than they need to. The servants speak only in whispers. Even the shadows behave differently now, because they know the end has arrived, not with fire or collapse, but with ceremony. And you receive it like an honored guest. Octavian is near. Near you hear the footsteps of his soldiers on the outskirts of Alexandria. You hear the Roman voices in your own city, issuing orders with clipped Latin consonants. You see the messengers ride through your gates granted safe passage, but not welcome. They carry him closer, word by word, step by step, and still you are calm, because you are not preparing to flee. You are preparing to leave. There is a difference. You dress that morning in white linen, brushed with gold threads, not for show, for clarity, for tradition, for something the gods might recognize. In the atrium, you burn incense until the smoke curls like serpents up into the painted sky. You sit in silence while the priestesses sing soft prayers behind you, ancient words, older than even you. You are not begging the gods. You are reminding them who you are. Antony is elsewhere. His grief has grown fangs. The news of defeat at sea. The deserters. The ships that never returned. The city slipping from his fingers like sand. And worst of all, false reports that you are dead. He believed it, and in believing it, he took his own sword. You were told too late. You ran to him. The stone steps blurred beneath your feet. The guards let you pass without question. And there he lent his blood in his last moments. Looking up at you as though death had changed nothing. You took his hand. You told him you lived. He smiled, faintly, then faded, and now you carry that goodbye like a crown. You sit beside his body as the oils are poured. You choose the linens yourself. You ask the embalmer for a softer touch. You do not cry, not yet. There will be time for that later, perhaps not in this life, but in some other dream. Caesarion does not understand. He is young, yes, but no longer a child. His eyes flicker with fire when you tell him what Rome intends. To take me, he asks. No, you say, brushing his hair back. To erase you. He does not ask more. He only nods, and you, Cleopatra, begin to plan the last act. You send Caesarion east with gold, with guardians, with a hope not even the Nile can guarantee. You do not kiss him goodbye. You touch his cheek. You whisper, "Live, it is your final command." Then you turn inward. You gather your treasures, not the gold, not the jewels. Those mean nothing now. You gather the letters, the poems, the tiny ivory figure carved when you were 12, the broken amulet from your nursemaid's wrist, the scrolls Caesar gave you before he left for Rome. You place them in a basket and seal them away, not for the conquerors, but for the dust. Let history decide their worth. Then you prepare yourself. You bathe slowly. You anoint your skin with sacred oils. You wrap your hair in linen and crown yourself, not with gold, but with silence, because this is not surrender. This is authorship. This is the final line of your final scroll, written in scent and skin and sigh. When the guards arrive, you greet them in the antechamber. You smile. You ask to be allowed to perform one last rite. They agree. Of course they do. They believe they have already won. They do not see the serpent hidden in the basket. They do not see the vials beside your mirror. They do not understand that you will not walk through their streets as a trophy. You will not be paraded. You will not be displayed. You will not be rewritten. That night, the palace is quiet. You lie on your couch, the linen soft beneath you. Two of your attendants, loyal until the last breath, sit nearby. They do not speak. They do not need to. You reach for the basket. The asp inside is small, almost delicate, a thing of riverbanks and sunlight, and yet it holds more power than Rome. You take it gently, you thank it, you press it to your skin, and as the venom begins its quiet work, as the chill creeps upward like a tide, you close your eyes. Not in fear, in relief. The ceiling fades. The torches dim. The past dissolves into warmth. You are not vanishing. You are crossing from memory to myth, from silence to story. Let the palace breathe its final perfume. Let the world wait behind its locked doors. You are not theirs. You are not even yours. You are ending. But oh, how beautifully you end. It is not pain you feel first. It is weightlessness, as though the body you have carried through war, through love, through births and betrayals, has finally exhaled, fully, completely, without needing to inhale again. The ASP's bite is not cruel. It is not violence. It is ... quiet. It arrives like sleep, like a silk curtain drawn over the eyes at dusk. Your limbs go soft, your hands open, the golden bracelets slip slightly down your wrist as your pulse fades beneath them. They glint in the lantern light, those last threads of your former shape before the stillness takes hold. And there you lie, not as a queen, not as a seductress, not as an enemy of Rome, just as a woman, a mother, a daughter of the Nile, a breath about to become memory. The room is dim. Hushed, the servants who remained with you do not weep, not yet. They sit beside you in reverence, brushing back a strand of hair, adjusting the folds of your linen robe so it lays just so. This is not tragedy. This is ritual. This is an ending you chose. And in that choice, power, the perfume still lingers in the air. Frankincense, lotus, a hint of salt from the sea. Octavian will not arrive until morning. By then, the warmth will be gone. By then, your skin will have cooled to the temperature of the tomb, and still, your presence will hover in the air like dust in light. He will come expecting to conquer you in death, but he will find something else, not a trophy, not a captive, not even a woman. He will find silence, and that silence will unsettle him more than any army could. He will order your body examined. He will demand to know how, who helped, why it was not prevented, but none will answer. They will only repeat your name, Cleopatra, not screamed, not sobbed, whispered like a prayer. The gods chose not to refuse. The world will argue for centuries whether it was truly an asp, or poison, or even myth. But the truth is simpler than that. It was choice. The last golden gaze was yours. Your eyes, half-lidded, found the torchlight on the far wall. You saw the flicker, the shimmer, the movement, and for one last moment you watched, not Rome, not defeat, not history. Light. And in that light, you were not afraid. You remembered the water of the Nile lapping against your ankles as a child, the scrolls pressed between your fingers, the hush of the library, the ink of your name written in a dozen languages. You remembered Caesar's voice, Antony's hand in yours, your children's breath on your shoulder as they slept, and as the torch flickered, you let go, gently, like a queen, like a mother, like a girl who once traced constellations on the palace ceiling and whispered secrets to the stars. When Octavian finds you, he will frown. He will try to preserve your image. He will try to own the story, but it will slip through his fingers, because your story does not belong to Rome. It belongs to the night sky, to the women who come after, to the river that still carries your name in silence. You are gone now, but you are not lost. You drift somewhere between myth and memory, between gold and shadow, between breath and story. And there, in that gentle beyond, you rest up, forever watching, forever glowing. Let the world speak in scrolls and swords. You have already said enough. Peace doesn't arrive with trumpets, not the kind that matters. Real peace comes like a breath that's been held too long. A breath that's let go, not with relief, but with surrender. Soft, final, not victory, not lost, just stillness. And so it is now. The asp is gone. Your body lies quiet in the chamber where you once received kings, where you once whispered dreams into the ears of gods. The air still smells of oil and old jasmine. The linen across your chest is perfectly arranged. Your eyes are closed. You are gone, but not scattered. Octavian stands near you now, not as Caesar, not yet, just a man, a conqueror who arrived too late. He thought he'd find a prize, a captive to parade through Roman streets, a queen brought low instead. He finds something that cannot be marched, or mocked, or rewritten. He finds peace, and peace unnerves him. He orders your body to be treated with honor, not because he respects you, but because, deep down, something about your silence unnerves his sword. You have outplayed him, not in war. In ending, it spreads through the palace like incense. The queen is dead. The queen is at rest. Some weep, some kneel, some remain silent, because silence is the only thing large enough to fit the shape of your absence. And yet, in the city, something softens. Alexandria does not riot. It does not collapse. It exhales, because the queen, in dying, has given it back to itself. No more war cries, no more thunder, only the sound of water against stone. Caesarion does not return. You made sure of that. Your last gift to him was distance. Not from you, but from the claws of history. They say he lived a little while longer, long enough to be seen, not long enough to change anything. His story ends not with a roar, but with the faint scratching of a name being erased from a Roman scroll. But your story, it refuses silence, even as you lie still beneath your burial shroud, even as the tomb is sealed with the weight of stone and ritual. The world begins to speak you back into breath. The people remember. They speak of the queen who held Rome in her hands like glass, who spoke more languages than half the Senate combined, who wrapped herself in perfume and power and sailed a river like a star, come down to rest on the Nile. You become not just history. You become a threshold, a name that lingers in the back of every poem about love and loss, a riddle inside every conversation about power, a mirror women will hold for centuries, asking, could I, too? And in that mirror, your eyes always return, not to haunt, but to remind that peace does not always look like surrender. Sometimes, peace is the bite you choose, the ending you write, the silence you create with such care that the world must listen. And so, in the heart of your tomb, beneath gold and darkness, wrapped in stillness and story, you do not vanish, you expand, you drift, no, not as body, not even as queen, but as presence, as the bite of peace itself. Let Octavian keep his empire. Let Rome write its triumphs. You have your own. It rests in the hush of the sea, in the breath of the reeds, in the dreams of those who still hear your name in the quiet of night. Cleopatra, the queen, who did not beg, who did not bow, who in the end chose stillness not as escape, but as answer. Let the world turn now. You are finally still, and still you are everywhere. You are gone, but the halls still remember you. They do not speak it aloud. No, marble never shouts. It murmurs, it hums. It holds the weight of footsteps long faded and voices once firm. And in those polished walls of Rome, beneath layers of paint and pride, your name echoes dot, not as they intended, because you were never meant to echo. You were meant to vanish. That was the plan. Let them display Antony's armor, parade Caesar's bust, carve Octavian into stone. Let them burn your letters, recast your coins, call you foreign, dangerous, divine, deranged. Let them simplify. Rome always prefers its enemies neat, its women silent, and its queens conquered. But you do not stay in their margins. You live between the cracks of their marble floors, in the twist of a senator's lie, in the way the statues of goddesses begin to resemble you, in the half-true scrolls penned by men who never met your gaze, because erasure, when attempted too loudly, only carves memory deeper. You, Cleopatra, were not buried, you were multiplied. They debate you now in scrolls and salons. Poison or serpent, monster or martyr, was it love or was it strategy? You do not answer, because you no longer need to. You've become the kind of story that bends to its Tellerand, survives anyway. They name you Isis reborn. They call you temptress, genius, queen of the tides. They sculpt your face, even though none truly remember its shape. But oh, how familiar it feels. You're always reappearing, always reframed, in paintings hung in cool European halls, in sonnets scribbled beside candlelight, in stage plays where your final breath is delivered in slow, deliberate silence. You are tragedy. You are myth. You are echo. But beneath it all, you remain real. More real, perhaps, than those who wrote your endings. You who were born in the hush of the Nile. You who learned a dozen tongues just to speak your people into power. You who studied the scent of empire before you wore its perfume. You were not made of gold. You were made of attention. And now, centuries later, that attention remains. A woman stands before a statue in Rome, her fingers brushing the worn inscription. She wonders who you were, and in the wondering there you are again. A scholar in Alexandria leafs through a crumbling scroll, reading your name aloud. And there you are again. A girl, somewhere, listens to the tale of a queen who refused to be. Paraded, and her chest rises not with fear, but with recognition. There you are again. Because marble fades, and gold dulls, but the echo of a woman who chose her ending, that lasts. And so you drift through time, not in chains, but in choice. Even now, as the world spins further from the days of temples and sails, your name finds breath, not through power, not through lovers, but through the echo you left in every mind that asked, what if power didn't need permission? What if a queen could end her own story? What if silence could thunder? You are not just memory. You are mirror, and still that echo travels. It travels through marble, through myth, through centuries that cannot quite put you down. Sleep now, still and sure. Your name is awake, even if you are not. And in the hush of every history rewritten, your echo lingers uninvited, but undeniable. They call you many things, but in the quiet places, the old names remain. Daughter of Isis, dreamer of rivers, voice of the Nile, not the titles Rome carved in warning, Not the shadows cast by history's uncertain hands, but the names, the gods, whispered before your first breath. The names the water remembered long after your body was sealed in stone, and now the river dreams of you still. In Egypt, the water moves the same as it did when you were a girl, soft around reeds, slow. In the mornings, bright with stars by night. Sometimes, if the wind is just right, the palm leaves tremble in a way that sounds like your laughter. Sometimes, the ibis cranes its neck at the riverbank, listening for something it cannot name. Even the crocodiles bask in silences, if waiting for your voice to return. You are not in the palace anymore, not in the tomb, not in the statues. You are here in the hush between ripples, in the fragrance of crushed lotus petals, in the spaces where memory drips rather than declares. They say Isis wandered the earth after Osiris fell, searching, rebuilding, weeping over what was lost. You knew that story. You once read it by lamplight, fingers tracing the ink even before your own heart knew what it was like to carry loss like a crown. You were always a daughter of that myth, not because you were divine, but because you understood mourning. And now, the myths carry you in songs, sung by children who don't know the words, but know the feeling. In the prayers offered by women who do not ask for thrones, only strength. In the carvings on temple walls, where queens are painted with eyes open, always watching, always waiting, always becoming. You dreamed often, even when alive, of peace, yes, of family, but also of flight, of slipping away from Rome's gaze, of finding some small island where your name meant only what you chose it to mean. You never found that island, but in the soft minds of those who dream now you live there, in stories where you sail forever with your children, in whispers where Caesarion escapes, in verses where Antony lives. The real world rarely allows such endings, but dreams do. And you always knew how to dream. Perhaps that's why the gods gave you water, not fire, because water carries. It remembers the shape of what is gone, and still it flows. Now, when the Nile floods, it does so with your rhythm. Now, when the moon hangs over Egypt, it glows with your old perfume. You are not one thing. You never were. You are mother. You are myth. You are mind. You are mourning. You are everything Rome feared and everything the Nile forgave. And though your body is gone, you drift gently still, between prayer and poem, between memory and mist. Sleep, dreamer of rivers. The land remembers. The water remembers. The gods remember. And in the stillness of every reed and ripple, your name drifts gently toward the stars. This is where it all returns to silence. Not the silence of forgetting, but the silence of completion. Because you were never truly lost, Cleopatra. You simply slept, not in defeat, not in sorrow, but in the kind of rest only empires dare to envy. Now the wars are quiet, the cities changed, the names in power reshuffled too many times to matter. Rome became dust, its emperors marble, its poets echoes. But you remain in every corner of the world where story touches sleep, where a woman closes her eyes and remembers her worth, where a child hears of a queen who ruled not from fear, but from knowledge. Your breath stirs the air again. You are not just the final queen of Egypt, you are the final word in a language the world keeps trying to relearn. They say history is written by the victors, but history is not the same as memory. And memory belongs to those who feel, and feeling is what you left behind. Not gold, not empire, but the weight of being alive, the feel of linen in morning light, the tension of speaking a language no one else in the room understands, the ache of motherhood pressed into the folds of a robe, the curve of your signature on a scroll no longer needed. You are not in the tomb anymore. You are not in the statues either. You are in the pause before a decision, in the hush before a refusal, in the glance that says, I will not be small today. You are in every whisper that wonders, what if I were her? What if I could choose the way I am remembered? What if I didn't ask for permission? The Nile still flows without your hand. The palace still crumbles without your command. But the idea of you, that drifts everywhere. And perhaps that is what it means to sleep among empires, to lie beneath their banners, knowing that you do not belong to them, but they without meaning to belong to you. You are not a relic. You are rest. You are the hush. In the archive, the pause between two rulers' names, the soft breath that slips out of the mouths of women who lead, even now, especially now. And so, sleep well, Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile, Mother of kingdoms, Weaver of endings, bearer of silence, sharp as silver. Let the world go on. Let time rewrite itself. You have nothing left to prove. Close your eyes now, and know that even the stars, burning quietly above forgotten empires, still turn to watch you sleep. Good night.